Morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome from wherever you're joining today. My name is Susan, and I am joined by the amazing Dexibit founder, Angie Judge. Welcome, Angie.
Hi, everybody.
Today, we'll be taking you through a very exciting new feature. We are thrilled to present our new AI module called Ask. But before we jump in, I will take you through a quick intro to Dexibit for anyone that may be new here. So if you're new, we do data analytics specifically for visitor attractions. This is for both cultural and commercial organizations. Our mission is to democratize data, and we do that by bringing together all sorts of data from around the visitor's experience in your venue's operations. So things like footfall, ticketing, CRM, point of sale, e-commerce, social web, weather, and so much more. So I'll go ahead and share my screen now to show you what that looks like in the product. Here is Dexibit. It is software as a service, so you can invite as many users as you'd like. And you can build dashboards, reports, insights, and forecasts, which you can then turn into scheduled email reports at a click of a button. In Dexibit, we have an extensive library of visualizations, and to add one to your dashboard, you can simply search for the topic you're looking for and click Add to add it in. And this here is an example dashboard, so you can see lots of different data coming together in these visualizations to get everything from very high-level data right down through to the very detailed data. And you can also find our brand new feature, Ask, over here on the left-hand side. This is where you can ask any questions about your data. I'll hand it over to Angie now to tell us a little bit more about how Ask works and what sort of data it's trained on.
Thanks very much, Susan. And so welcome, everyone. We are so excited to share this with you. A few people have had a preview of it in the last month, and we'll be launching it today to all of our customers and publicly to market over the course of the next couple of weeks. But Ask is Dexibit's conversational insight product. And this is a huge breakthrough. It is very different to working with a traditional, I say traditional, the usual sort of GPT. They haven't been around for that long, whether it's sort of a chat GPT or a Claude. And the reason why is that Ask by Dexibit not only incorporates that GPT technology, but it's connected to your data. It's connected to the voice of the visitor. It's connected to all of our benchmarks at Dexibit, and we have specifically tuned it and trained it not only to the visitor attraction, but to your attraction specifically. And so it becomes incredibly powerful, incredibly supercharged, and it can do all sorts of things that you can't do in, say, ChatGPT. And best of all, of course, all your data is nice and secure. We don't allow any of those data, any of those GPT models to look at your, to use your data for the purposes of their own training. And so it conforms to all of the sort of security and other expectations that you'd have of Dexibit with AI. So we're going to have a look at a couple of cool things that you can do with it, because part and parcel of learning how to use AI is things like learning how to form a great prompt, but also kind of working out what can you do with it, what sorts of tasks come up for you in your day-to-day. And the cool thing about Ask by Dexibit is that you can use Ask to not only do work on your data, like tell me how many visitors I had last week, or look at my compound annual growth rate for the last few years, but you can also use Ask to do work on your data, like add something to the almanac. We'll have a look at that today. Or to do work with your data, like write me a complaints handling policy or procedure document using real examples that I can then use to onboard and train my staff on. So we're going to take a look at a couple of those examples today just to see how powerful it is and how many tools you've got access to within Ask, including access to the internet as well. So let's get started. Let's ask it a question. You'll see some pills come up here on the bottom, depending on what data sets you've got available, which is a great way to get started. Or you can just type in, I'm going to say, how many visitors are forecast for me, for my attraction next week? And here we go. Ask has launched a conversation, and it's going to do some thinking. And we can open that up to see what that thinking involves. It's going to do some queries, and it's getting some tools like establishing what is the date and time. It's going and having a look at the different data sets that it's got available, running some queries on those data sets. And then as it goes, it's going to find us the answer. If it runs into any issues, like for example, if it finds some anomalies with your data, or if you don't have a data set configured or set up, it'll reattempt and work out how to handle this. So here we go. It's encountered a issue with my forecast data. Let's have a look. Let's ask it something else, like write me a performance review of my third party operator who provides food and beverage based on all my visitors' feedback. We'll get it to do this, see if it's got access to this data. So this is an example of where I'm asking it to do some work with my data, not necessarily just telling me what it is, but I'm actually asking it to do the job of analyzing it. So again, we'll see it go through, have a look. It's found in my food and beverage, it's found a whole pile of different review marks. It's going to go through and do some more analysis. And you can see some of the initial findings that it's coming up with. This stuff on its own is quite good from a quantitative perspective, but we want it to go really deep. Here we go. Generating a report. So it's coming up with an executive summary. It's going to critique different areas. It's giving examples from real visitor feedback in here. It's giving some analysis on, like, for example, here, pricing and value perception, operational consistency. You can see my partner here isn't doing very well in the food and beverage section, recommending some new actions. And this is something that's really cool. When we look at a dashboard, it doesn't necessarily tell us what to do next, where this with conversational insight goes as far as making recommendations. It's come up with a bit of an action plan for us, which is quite cool. And you can see if I had done this in ChatGPT, not only does that not have access to my data to be able to do it to begin with, or understand sort of the aspects of the food and beverage experience in a visitor attraction, but it doesn't do this kind of really super detailed analysis. So that's really, really powerful to have that there. Cool. Let's do something else. I'm launching a new campaign, and I want to match it with some sort of food and beverage festival in, let's say, Washington, DC. Can you find any that might be interesting or related food and beverage events and add them to my almanac? So what I'm going to ask it to do is to do some research on the internet and then to bring me back that information and actually to go and edit my data on my behalf. So here we go. It's doing some research on the internet. So it's found a whole bunch of Washington, DC food and drink festivals from different sources. It doesn't just refer to one. And we can see where those are coming from. It's found some good ones. So we've got the giant National Capital Barbecue Battle scheduled for June 21, and another one in for next year. I love this Top Pitmasters Embassy Chef Challenge. That sounds really nice. And a whole bunch of, here we go. It's doing some work to discover what calendars I've got in my almanac, because remember, we can have lots of different calendars, the ones that we subscribe to from Dexibit and the ones that are created by us. And it's going to decide which one, we're going to need to decide which one to add this to. And it might do some testing here because it might not have access to write to all of these calendars. So it might sort of run into that and then reset. Here we go. See, it's tried to create them in a calendar it didn't have access to. So it's going to think about that some more. And then it might either come back and ask me what I want to do, or it might make some analysis and decisions for it as well. Oh, there we go. It's made a smart call. It said, since we're in November 2025, I'm going to focus on upcoming events and then recent events for context. So it's decided to make a new calendar specifically for this. I could, of course, prompt it on what I wanted it to do in the beginning if that wasn't what I wanted it to do, but that sounds like a good approach to me. Here we go. So it's added 5 festivals to this new calendar. That's them all sitting in there. And it would have made a call as well. Let's go back here on what item type to use. So we've got lots of different item types in the almanac. So we can see those here. And so it's made a decision on which one of those to use. Cool. And all events are now tracked in our almanac and categorized. It's chosen regional events for easy filtering. And it's asked me if I wanted to go ahead and do the campaign scheduling. So let's go back to our almanac. So this is our calendar of what's on in and around the location. And we can see here our new calendar that it's made, the Washington, D.C. events. And let's go and check for one of these. Was it a beer festival or something? Here we go. The Snelligaster Craft Beer Festival. That sounds exciting. Next October, by the looks of it, in Washington, D.C. It's been created in that calculator, in that calendar, given that item type as it promised. And let's see if it's put any details in there. There we go. It's given me a little summary that's put into my almanac as well. So that's an example of Dexibit's Ask doing work, research on the internet, and also doing work in your data, as well as what we saw from a third-party performance, like doing that review to actually get in there and analyze your data and not only come up with the answers, but do work on it to write reports and things like that. So this is great for if I wanted to write an email to my food and beverage operator to say, hey, I've seen some interesting things in the data. I think we should have a meeting and here's a summary of what those are. Or I might want to create a new menu based on some of the visitor feedback if I was collaborating with them. So super, super powerful. So this has got access to all your data domains, so things like visitation, ticketing, membership, revenue, forecasting, all of your sort of common data sets, things like Google Analytics and the weather, all of our benchmark data sets at Dexibit, so things like your GEO, generative engine optimization that we looked at recently. And then it's got access to your voice of the visitor if you've got that. Now, if you haven't added on voice of the visitor yet, this is such a powerful thing to do because of the fact that you can then ask questions about how your visitors feel. And you can use that voice of the visitor to be able to create content based on what your visitors are saying in their voice. So for example, one of the key action points we find out of generative engine optimization, so looking at how we can get ourselves on the, say, ChatGPT recommendation when someone says like, what should I do in Washington, D.C. today? Or I'm planning a trip with my family, where should I go? To make sure that we're recommended there and to make sure the information that GPT is giving the consumer is accurate. One of the great things you can do is add an FAQ page on your website. So this is a great way of generating this content because you can see what questions your visitors are actually talking to in real voice of the visitor context. And you can use the same language and the same words, which are then going to optimize well for when those same people are asking questions inside a platform like ChatGPT. So a really, really cool example of something you can do with this, but there is no end to it. All sorts of use cases that you can use this for. We have just only pricked the very surface, not even scratched it today in terms of a couple of those.
Awesome. Thank you, Angie. I have a couple of questions. The first is, can I share my conversations and ask with my teammates?
Oh, that's a good one. Let's go back to that conversation we had before. So all of your conversations will sit here on the left side bar that we've got here. So you can scroll back and see them and they don't disappear. So you can see I've been very busy conversing here with my ask. And you can click on any of those to refer back to your conversation. And you can pick it up again at any time as well. You'll see as well as I'm hovering over these conversations, I can give it a like, a thumbs up or a thumbs down, which is great feedback for us at Dexibit to help these models learn from what they're doing well and what they need to improve upon. You can also copy the text if you want to go and work with this elsewhere. But up here on the top right hand side, you'll see a share button. And this gives you the opportunity to add users or groups, with the opportunity to own, edit, or view your conversation. So super powerful, for them to get involved if you want to sort of publish those out. And you might see some conversations that we've had that we've been sharing, with you in your account as well. And just while we're here, we want to start a new conversation. We just hit that new chat button to come back to that homepage. And you can also tuck this menu away if you'd like a nice clean screen to work with, and retrieve it again. And you've got lots of controls there. And the same we saw on the right-hand side when we pulled up our item lists and so forth. Where were they? Let me scroll up a little bit more. Oh, I need to go back. I deleted my conversation, didn't I? So you can pull up that right-hand sidebar and have a look at what's going to come out and sort of rearrange that on the right-hand side. So lots and lots of cool things to play with in here, lots of great feedback to be able to share with your team based on what your visitors are saying, what's happening in your data. This is a super fast way to get to insights and analysis.
That's awesome. And one more question. What kind of hesitancy can a leader expect around AI, and how would they respond to that?
Ooh. That's a really, really good question, because this is a really big step change, not just in how people use Dexibit or how they interact with data, but AI is a huge, big societal change in the world at the moment. And so it is very reasonable to expect our teams to have some hesitancy about that. The big one, of course, is job fear. And I think that across the world, that's a very real fear at the moment. We hear headlines like AWS or Amazon are planning to replace 75% of their workforce by, say, 2030 or something like. These are quite scary headlines to face. In the attraction, of course, we have very human to human business. And so for the most part, that will be fairly muted. But I think for a lot of teams, the message should be that this is about being able to do more, and to be able to be more efficient, and to give ourselves more headspace to do deeper, better work in order to grow faster, to be more efficient as a team, to deliver better experiences. It's not necessarily a tool that we're messaging to reduce team size, for example. So that would be the big first message to lead with your team, that this is enabling people to do more in their work. You might want to think about an AI policy, and if you haven't got one already, we don't necessarily recommend that you need one, because if you've got a good sort of data or security policy, and if you're providing appropriate, education and training for your team, and we can help with some of that, great content on our website too, that should be sufficient. AI moves at such a pace, it's really hard to write policy for it. But if you do still feel you need one, on our website, you'll find a template with AI policy. And it also deals with some of the other kind of values connections that we need to think about with AI. For example, it's important anytime content is generated by AI to flag that it is generated by AI. It's important to have what we call human in the loop for a lot of things. So, for example, you'll see whenever we produce content with Dexibit's Ask, we always write on it saying, AI can make mistakes. You should validate this information before acting on it. And so that's where you might refer back to a dashboard or a report to verify some information. The cool thing about this technology is that rather than doing a huge amount of analysis to see if you can get to an answer, and doing all of that homework up front, you get to the answer really quickly, and then you can do some of that homework if you get to the answer that you think is actionable, to verify it. So you're sort of reducing the amount of workload going into it. A couple of other things that come up is to make sure that creative things are left with humans to make. GPT is great for starting that off, for ideation, for bouncing ideas back and forth, for encouraging brainstorming. But of course, we want to really preserve human creativity, particularly in visitor experience. So the menu example I used before shouldn't necessarily be the only thing that I do, or the only steps that I do for that creativity. It might just give me a couple of ideas to get rolling with. We might want to think about environmental causes. So things like being really efficient with my prompts to make sure that I'm wording things exactly how I want them so I don't have to do more prompts than is necessary. And to be not throw away with the prompts that I'm giving to ask, really preserving those for the work that I really need to do. And that can be some of the environmental considerations that we use with this technology. And we might want to make sure as well that there's a human in the loop for anything that's being published publicly. So, for example, if you've got voice of the visitor and it's providing a recommended reply, or if we were to enter in a visitor complaint and format a response based on that, those are things where I'd want to have someone just look over and make sure that they're appropriate and in line with what we want. And on that note as well, we might just sort of retrain some voice back into here, some branding voice if there's some things that we need to tweak and be careful on.
Thank you so much, Angie, for taking us through Ask. And thank you everyone who's joined today. We look forward to seeing you next time.